Let's talk about Wizards of the Coast purchasing D&D Beyond. Now, here's the thing. They have a press release that went out that didn't really tell us a whole lot. So we're going to talk about what we do know, and then we're going to spend a lot of time with wild speculation because they just didn't tell us much. But that's okay, because we have never let truth and facts get in the way of imagining what wonderful things might happen and what horrible things might happen. So we're going to speculate some, and it's going to be lots of fun. First thing, if you don't know, Wizards of the Coast recently bought D&D Beyond at a price tag of, $146.3 million, which is not too bad. So the question is, of course, what does that mean? We're not going to see the ramifications for this until probably the second quarter of this year, the third quarter of this year. They have to finalize the sale. They have to do all this type of stuff. But sales like this usually run over, I think. I don't think they ever really finalize these things on time. It's probably going to take later than that. You probably are going to see this running into the fourth quarter. And then we're going to start to see changes at that point. So right now, nothing's going to change because literally D&D Beyond is still its own company, and they will be until probably the third or fourth quarter of this year. And then Wizards will be in control, and then we might see changes. So first question is, are they shutting them down? Is Wizards going to shut D&D Beyond down? Because I did do a previous video where there was some speculation with Wizards of the Coast announcing their next evolution and going into virtual tabletop stuff, which was speculated as well, that they might shut down D&D Beyond. They might pull their license away and not let them do it anymore. Well, clearly now Wizards of the Coast is buying D&D Beyond. So are they going to shut them down? It doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like it. It's pretty clear that Wizards of the Coast wants to move into online content. They said as much in their press release, so they're not going to shut D&D Beyond down. I think they're probably going to expand on it, and they're going to make it better, but not shutting it down. Wizards of the Coast is going to use the data from D&D Beyond to determine which direction they'll take. Like right now, I'm assuming they don't have like open access to all of the data and metrics from D&D Beyond. But once they actually own the company, they're going to be able to look under the hood, and they're going to be able to see, based upon the data, what things are working, what things aren't working, and then they're going to determine their direction from there. Which means that they're not telling us what exactly they're going to do. They're not committing to anything, either against or for. They're essentially saying, look, we don't know what we're going to do. We need to wait until we get the company first, and then we're going to look at data, and then we're going to decide what we're going to do. More in the direction of not really telling us a whole lot. But at least they have a good reason for not telling us a whole lot, instead of just keeping their mouth shut. So the next question you might ask yourself is, well, that's cool. So Wizards of the Coast is buying D&D Beyond, and they're probably not going to shut them down. What about all the people that work at D&D Beyond? Are they still going to work there? Or is Wizards basically going to do what many companies do? They buy the company and then they fire the staff and have their own staff do all of the things that the bought company's staff was doing. So is Wizards potentially going to do that? Not initially, for sure. Almost not initially. If the people selling D&D Beyond, the owners of D&D Beyond, were at all caring about the people that currently work for them, they almost assuredly would have tried to work something into the terms of sale whereby their current staff, the people that work there, are able to stay on with the company for a certain amount of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year or something like that. But it wouldn't shock me that they put into their sales terms a clause that keeps their current employees on for a period of time. If they at all care about them, they would have done that. So I don't think you're going to see a bunch of people getting fired from D&D Beyond anytime soon. Wizards is probably for sure going to, if they are going to do that, they're going to wait several months until after the sale has been completed. They might wait a year after the sale has been completed. That's kind of all we know, or like they haven't told us a whole lot more than that, is my understanding. So now we are going to move on to wild speculation. We kind of did that a little bit with the whole fire them or not thing. But now we're going to speculate on some other things that are very interesting to folks. Ladies and gentlemen, one last hoorah plug right here for the Lairs and Legends Kickstarter. It is live right now. We have surpassed our 150K stretch goal to unlock premium paper, and I'm super excited about that. You should head on over there. We have a link down in the chat. It is going to give you 2 massive books full of 5th edition adventures, everything compatible 100% with 5th edition D&D, adventures, monsters, magic items, traps, puzzles, encounters, spells, subclasses, adventure ideas, whole bunches of Dungeon Master resources. You can get the hardcover of Into the Fae as an add-on. We have alternate covers as an add-on. Everyone who backs at the Brass Dragon tier or above will automatically get a back catalog of 14 adventures thrown in on top of your pledge. We're really trying to give people as much value as we can. It's probably enough content for you to run games with for at least a year or more. So it's going to give you tons of stuff, help reduce your prep time, hopefully, maybe improve your games, so go check that out. It's doing great. I'm super pleased with how it's doing right now. I would love to unlock more stretch goals and just kill those things even more, because more stretch goals means more content for people, more wonderful artwork that we're going to be able to commission. So go check that out. It's very beautiful. Virtual tabletops. This is definitely going to be one of the big moves that Wizards of the Coast makes. Having a virtual tabletop to play online. I already said that Wizards of the Coast is going to be focusing more on online content. They bought D&D Beyond. They're going to double down on online content. Digital content is going to be the way to go. And one of the foremost places they're going to look to expand into digital content, I guarantee you, is with a virtual tabletop. Now, we believe that D&D Beyond has probably been working on a virtual tabletop of their own. They have been rolling out little features on their site that seem to be a prelude to an actual virtual tabletop. So it's possible they already have in the works a virtual tabletop that Wizards of the Coast is just going to continue and then roll out at some point. Now, even if they don't already have virtual tabletop in the works, it's possible as well that Wizards is going to reach out to an existing virtual tabletop, such as Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, or Foundry, or another one that's out there, and do perhaps a couple of 2 things. One, they might purchase them outright. For instance, Wizards just purchases Roll20 and then starts using Roll20 as their virtual tabletop that integrates, hopefully integrates with D&D Beyond. I mean, there are add-ons and stuff that you can get that will kind of make them integrate, but it isn't always seamless. Of course, this raises questions about licensing for other games that run on Roll20. What would happen to those licenses? Would those games continue to be on there? Would they let the licenses roll out? If they let the licenses roll out, that would obviously make a whole lot of people that play other games on Roll20 angry and things like that. So there are some questions around that. If they were to purchase outright a different virtual tabletop and roll it into the mix, how would they handle that? You might have instead a partnership where they just partner very closely with a company like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds so that their D&D Beyond product can integrate more seamlessly and have a better experience for players. That is a possibility. Obviously, they originally had a partnership going on with D&D Beyond, Wizards and D&D Beyond working together. So it is very theoretically possible then that in the next evolution, they're going to have a partnership going on with a virtual tabletop, such as Fantasy Grounds. So we don't know exactly what they're going to do. My guess is, my hope would be that if they do decide to either purchase or partner with a virtual tabletop that already exists, that it's going to be one of the newer ones that has more promise, perhaps more modernization to it. Roll20 is the most popular one, but it's pretty antiquated. It gets the job done, but that's kind of the best you can say about it. Fantasy Grounds has some improvements on it, my understanding is, but some of the virtual tabletops that are out there are even more improved on that. So my personal hope would be that if they do partner with or purchase a virtual tabletop, that they go with one like, I've heard Foundry is really nice, and some of the other ones. My hope would be they go with one of those it's probably going to be cheaper for them to purchase or partner with. And because it's newer, hopefully it will be better for playability purposes than some of the other antiquated ones that we have that work but don't work. Do you think Wizards of the Coast will use D&D Beyond to create a virtual tabletop and then get Beyond 20 shut down, forcing people to subscribe with them in order to actually link D&D Beyond to a virtual tabletop? That is interesting. That makes sense to me. It would absolutely make sense to me. The moment that Wizards of the Coast has their own virtual tabletop, the moment that happens, I 100% guarantee you that they are going to clamp down on any sort of add-on such as Beyond 20 that will send the API data from D&D Beyond over to another virtual tabletop. Like for instance, right now in my groups, we use D&D Beyond for our character sheets, and then we use Roll20 for our virtual tabletop, and we use Beyond 20 in Google Chrome to send information from D&D Beyond over to the virtual tabletop Roll20. But the moment that Wizards of the Coast has their own virtual tabletop, they will want to push people to that virtual tabletop. They will. And the easiest and fastest way to do that, in my opinion, would be to shut down anything that links D&D Beyond data over to a different virtual tabletop. Now, they don't have to shut down Beyond 20. All they would have to do is like restrict their API or something, and just not give them that data, not make that API available to port over the information from D&D Beyond to your other virtual tabletops and stuff like that. So that's all that they would have to do in order to make that work. They wouldn't even have to do anything to Beyond 20. They just close off their API and the problem sorts itself out. I think that we are going to see improvements to D&D Beyond without a doubt. You're going to see faster bug fixes, which some bugs we benefit from and love, which we don't want them to fix. Other bug fixes really suck and reduce functionality and makes things not work, and we'd like those to get fixed. The search functionality. Please, Wizards, if you are listening to this, work on D&D Beyond's search functionality. You know what? Let's do this. Just scrap their search functionality and plug in Google. Just plug on Google, put Google on the site. Google will be able to find stuff. You know, like I have to go to Google to search for stuff in D&D Beyond to find it, as opposed to going to D&D Beyond's search bar. Like, yeah. So hopefully they'll fix that and we'll have some quality of life improvements to D&D Beyond. I mentioned this before. You are definitely going to see a move toward more digital content over printed books. This is without a doubt. This is probably one of the main reasons they purchased D&D Beyond. So they want to focus on online content. Very, very clear. No question about it. Why? Well, printing books is expensive. Not just printing the books, but shipping the books, fulfilling the books. Whereas online content is not expensive. Very, very much not expensive. I know. I print stuff and I also produce online content, digital content, and I can tell you firsthand, printing stuff is expensive. Forget about just the physical printing costs, which you can do in China or something and get them fairly cheap. But also think about the shipping, think about the logistics, think about everything else that goes around a physical product. There's a lot of overhead there. Digital products are so much easier, so much less complicated, very, very easy to manage compared to printed products. So the business benefits of going digital products is very, very clear. You also have a much higher profit on digital products. It is crazy. Once you have your upfront investment and once you have a delivery vehicle, you might have some server costs or some maintenance and stuff, bug fixes and stuff like that. But digital content, once it's created, doesn't really cost anything. Like it does, but it's minuscule compared to having to continue printing stuff. So much higher ROI on digital content as opposed to printed content. Also, consider updating things. Consider when you have compatibility things that you want to change so that one edition works with another edition. Consider errata. If you have physical printed books, updates are very, very difficult, and you can't just go back through all of the printed books and fix them. No, you have to release errata sheets and PDFs. Whereas if you have digital content, you can just go in and change it, and done, it's changed. Consider the revisions they did to Curse of Strahd some time ago. They went through and they changed some things that they didn't like and that people didn't like about that adventure. And then they released an entirely new book, which probably didn't sell a whole lot. I think maybe because we already had the original one and that was good enough. And we weren't going to buy the new version just because they changed some things. So they spent a whole lot of money creating the new Curse of Strahd, and I suspect there wasn't a whole lot of ROI on it, except for, you know, they were probably going, I don't know if it was virtue signaling or if they were literally wanted to fix things that they felt were wrong about it. However you want to slice it. The ROI was not in physical money profit. It was other ROI, company reputation, brand appeal, and things like that. That was the ROI for that change. But if it were digital content, my point is that it would be super easy for them to just go back in and change those things compared to printed content that needs new layout, new printing, new design, perhaps, and things like that. So the biggest thing that I see coming up every single time, and I'm sure it's been asked multiple times in the chat, is if we are going the way of digital content, will there be codes in the books to unlock digital content? In other words, if I go out and buy Wizard's latest printed book, will there be a code in it to unlock content on D&D Beyond? Give me that code. Like, this is what everybody wants. Everybody is clamoring for this because they don't want to essentially buy the same book twice. They buy it in the store, the physical product, and then they have to go on D&D Beyond and buy it again. People, generally speaking, if you poll people, hate that. There are some people who will justify it. They'll say, well, you know, it's a different service, a different product and stuff. But the fact remains that most people feel like they're buying the same books twice. And most people really want a digital code in the back of a printed book that allows them to access the content on D&D Beyond. And I'm going to tell you that as much as you want that, you will not get it. You will not get it. There is no way that Wizards is going to give out digital codes to their online D&D content. They're not going to do it. Like I said before, printing is expensive. Digital content is very inexpensive. So when you're running a part of the business that costs a lot of money and has lots of overhead and the ROI isn't as high, and then you have a part of the business that has pretty good ROI, makes you a bunch more money, and the overhead is way lower, what you do is you try to make that money from this part of the business that has a much higher ROI make up for the part of the business, printed books, that doesn't have as much ROI, that costs you more to run. So if they take this part of the business that's expensive to run and then have codes in it that give you this part of the business, the digital content, for free, well, that negates the whole idea of the digital content helping make up for the low ROI on the printed books. So I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that at all. I think you're definitely never going to see digital codes in the back of books to unlock D&D Beyond's content. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. I know we've all been asking for it for years. Everybody wants it because they don't want to buy books twice. You're not going to get it. Not going to get it. I would love to eat crow. I would love to be wrong. I just don't believe it. What about PDFs? Well, that's even worse. There are even more business reasons not to produce PDFs, because right now with D&D Beyond, you could go through and copy paste the content. You could do screenshots and stuff and pirate it, but it takes some effort and it's not going to look very nice. A PDF is the easiest thing in the world to pirate. You got the PDF, you go put it places, boom, you're done. So I don't think you're ever going to see PDFs. And besides which, if they have digital content on D&D Beyond, releasing PDFs is going to cut that business down. It's going to hurt that business, theoretically. So I don't think that would be shooting themselves in the foot. That would be shooting themselves in both feet and then in both hands at the same time. I don't think you'll ever see that either. No chance of PDFs whatsoever. It would not surprise me whatsoever. It would not surprise me. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it would not surprise me if Wizards stopped printing books altogether and went 100% digital at some point in the future. They have announced the next evolution. They have said that things are going to be changing. They have purchased D&D Beyond. We know that 80% of all D&D players have played online at least once in 2021. With the move to online, with it being more popular, with digital being more lucrative, the purchase of D&D Beyond, etc., 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 I think that it's possible. It is possible they stop printing books. Do I think it's going to happen? No. It wouldn't surprise me though if they did, and then they had a print on demand option available to you. So maybe that's part of the next evolution. I don't think so. I think you would have a lot of people really upset because many people, including me, want physical books. Why do we want the physical books? Well, first of all, they're easier to use at the game table. They're easier to use and read in general. But also, once I buy a physical book, you're not getting it back. Like, I have the physical book in my hand, it's mine. You can't take it from me. Online, digital content such as D&D Beyond, that can be shut down any day they want. You can lose access to that at any moment. Virtual tabletops like Roll20, that can get shut down at any moment. They could say we're done and close shop. And all of the books you've bought, all of the content you've unlocked is gone. It is gone the moment they shut it down. So there is a great comfort in having the physical book because it is mine forevermore and thou shalt not take it. But digital content, you could say bye-bye to that in a moment and have not a say about it. The possibility of a subscription model to D&D Beyond. This is something that I would love to see, is the ability to simply subscribe to D&D Beyond and have access to all of the content. I don't know, $20 a month and it unlocks all of the content. And then I don't have to keep buying the books separately. Or maybe it's $50 a month. I don't know, there might be tiers to it. I would personally love to have a subscription model. I don't buy every single book, I refuse to. It's absolutely ridiculous. Not when I'm buying physical books. I'm not also going to buy the digital ones, but a subscription model, $20 a month or something, I would probably do that. I would, for the convenience of it. I would have the physical books, but also have a subscription model. That I see as a possibility for me as a consumer. Probably there would be other people willing to do that. I don't know. So I've been wanting a subscription model option for some time now. Will we see that? Maybe, but I think it's really going to depend upon their analysis of their financials and the details. When you have a product that people have already demonstrated they're willing to pay for, they're willing to buy the books a second time essentially up front, do you stop doing that and offer a subscription model? There's an ongoing revenue stream with a subscription model that's very nice, whereas buying products up front, it's a one-time income and then you don't get it ongoing. So there are benefits to subscription models, but buying the products up front is usually more expensive and you make more money immediately. So there are pros and cons of each from a business perspective. I would love to see a subscription model. I am not very confident that it's going to go that way, but who knows? We'll see what happens.